Today, we're talking to Zach Kass, former head of go-to-market at OpenAI, about the story of launching ChatGPT and how society can responsibly adopt AI. Thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring this episode. For simple cloud and powerful AI that's built to scale, visit DigitalOcean.com or just click the link in the show notes. You're listening to Joel Beasley, Modern CTO.
Been in AI for a long time, then you were working at OpenAI and go-to-market, and now you're doing like a lot of speaking and consulting, helping companies make this transition. Is that like a fair overview, or am I completely off base?
It's a totally fair overview. I realized that there is this massive disconnect between how the industry itself perceived itself, how the industry saw what was coming, and how basically everyone else saw what was coming, from my mom to Jamie Dimon. And that a lot of the change is going to happen not from inside of these organizations. And so I have spent the last 2 years building an advisory business and also doing research at University of Virginia and Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, studying the future of work and trying to bring to bear 16 years of applied AI experience and also academic exposure now to everyone else, as I say.
That's pretty cool. And so walk me through a little bit of your professional background, like your credibility of those 16 years in AI.
Started my career at a company called Crowdflower, which became Figure 8. It was the first scale AI, basically. It started by two Stanford researchers who were search scientists at Yahoo and figured out there was, I don't know if your listeners are going to be familiar with search science, but they went from precision to DCG, NDCG, which was just a more accurate way of informing the indexes on how to rank search results. And they could do DCG up to 20 or 25 really effectively. And it's actually what gave Yahoo almost a performance advantage. But the only way you could do it is with humans at massive scale. And so Lucas built this sort of front page on Amazon Mechanical Turk. Again, I don't know how much you remember about this, but early crowdsourcing technology to build training data for the search algos. And we turned that into a company, and that was Crowdflower and Figure 8, and spent a while there with him as we watched sort of statistical machine learning gain more popularity, as we watched the models proliferate, the number of companies that could effectively use these models expanded, and then went to a company, Lilt, which was also started by two Stanford researchers using large language models to solve machine translation. And there I started to sell, basically I was one of the first people to sell large language models. And we were doing it in sort of this workaround way where we were selling enterprise translation services powered by the machine translation efficiency. So it was AI-enabled services long before people were talking about it in that way, and did that for a while, and then graduated just before OpenAI launched GPT-3. The head of applied called Lucas, my first boss, and said, "Do you know anyone who can sell AI?" And Lucas is like, "There are not many people who have done it, so here's one of the guys." And got to launch 3.5 for ChatGPT 4.0 and some other just amazing products at OpenAI, and we sort of watched as the world, as I went sort of from a world where no one cared about AI to a world where no one didn't care about AI.
Yeah, I remember that time very clearly because it happened while we were doing the show. That is super interesting. So when you were doing the go-to-market stuff at OpenAI, I mean, was that hard or easy? Because, like, for example, if I create a teleportation business tomorrow, everyone's like, "Holy crap, teleportation," and they're all just going to flood to it. Was it hard or was it easy?
Both. So what I think is important. So the answer is both. The expectations when you're working at a company like OpenAI are exceptionally high. And so the amount of pressure that you put on yourself is basically all relative, right? It's like when you talk to friends who grew up to very successful parents. It's like, well, of course you had so much going for you. How could this not be a really pleasant childhood? And it's like, well, yeah, it's because my parents expected me to outperform them, and they had already outperformed their parents and so on. And so when you work at these exceptionally high performance organizations, the pressure you apply is all relative. And our ideas of growth wasn't, 5 to 10 million, it was 20 million to $1 billion, right? I joined OpenAI at 2 million in revenue and left at 2 billion in revenue. And that's work. It's like there's a lot that goes into that. And one of the key elements is maintaining talent density. So you need to hire an exceptional team and not compromise, which is just one of these incredible challenges. The other thing, and I think more to the point that maybe you're asking, is what is it like to work at a company where it's so exciting that the market is pulling you? And what I would remind people is OpenAI had been building important products long before we built ChatGPT. Dolly predated ChatGPT. GPT 3.5 predated ChatGPT. And we thought that we had cracked the nut with the science. And what's really interesting, and the thing that I would remind any CTO listening and any CEO or head of product, is that GPT 3.5 was released in June 2022. Right? So 4 months, or a little more, 4 months prior to the release of ChatGPT. And it's important to remember this because the concept behind ChatGPT was actually a chance to show people what the API was capable of, and yet with the idea that more people would use it. We were sort of sitting around, I was like, oh, why aren't people flooding the API? Why is it still so niche? And the model that ChatGPT was built on, GPT 3.5, was publicly available for 4 months, right? It was a slightly dialogue-aligned model, but not much. And the major breakthrough was the application layer. And I tell this story over and over because it really serves as one of my 3 epiphanies at OpenAI, that in fact, the application layer just matters as much, if not anything, if not more than anything else. And it serves as this constant reminder to anyone out there sort of feeling like they're stuck, not knowing what to build, which is that building a great customer experience remains king, right? It like building a thing that people can use effectively, that doesn't require material behavioral change, is really important. And that, of course, sparked a bunch of interest, but it still didn't sell itself, right? You still need to actually do a lot of the work, which is why OpenAI has invested so much in the last 2 years into the go-to-market organization, because it's not sufficient to just have good technology. You must build great people to sell and support it. And so the answer, is yes. It was easier than, when people ask for go-to-market advice, I'm like, look, I can give you plenty, but not from OpenAI. That is an anomaly, but not because it was easy, just because it was so different in scale and surprise.
It was like to many people, they created intelligence, like to the average person, like, whoa, we can have synthetic intelligence now.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of pressure because if the average person, if the uncle, if the aunt, if the grandpa is playing with the technology, then it's easy for people to understand it. And then they can talk to their board and say, why aren't we doing this type of stuff at our company? And one of the conversations that happens a lot in our CTO space is pressure from the board to adopt AI and to show some return on AI, which doesn't happen like a whole lot. They usually let technology kind of operate and they have products and they need some returns and stuff. But this is a whole lot of pressure right now from board members and the average people to their CTOs about implementing this.
We're observing the consumerization of technology in basically real time. I mean, we sort of talked about it for a while, but it really is happening at the edge now, where state-of-the-art technology, in this case, synthetic intelligence, I like that term, by the way, but unmetered intelligence is arriving first at basically a teenager's pocket. And I mean, I wrote about this the other day, that more and more world leaders I'm meeting, they can remain unnamed, so they're willing to tell me about these stories, are learning about the next big thing from their teen. They go home to the dining room table and they look at their child's phone and they go, what is that? And this is the ChatGPT effect. And it's actually, I don't know where we're going to go in this conversation, but one of the cases I make for why building in the open is so important. The Sora 2 came out and everyone, I got phone calls from press and other people, how could they do this? They're flooding the market. It's slop. It's dangerous. It's scary. And I go, listen, there are 2 alternatives to this world. The first is that we don't build this at all. And I don't believe in that. I think we should build technology and sort of pursue frontier within reason. obviously alignment and explainability. The other option is they build it in secret. They build it and they don't tell anyone, or they build it and they only tell a few Hollywood studios, right? They sell it to the highest bidder. And what's amazing right now is we're building state of the art at the edge, at the consumer edge. And it's turning, it's creating a very strange power balance, because a bunch of CTOs who used to have early access to the best technology are sometimes late to the party because it's their board or their board's teenager who's discovering the latest, greatest thing, on a YouTube video, on a GitHub thread. And that's, I got no issue with that, frankly. I think that, I say this with sympathy for the CTOs who are getting tremendous pressure to build things that are maybe not appropriate to build, which we can talk about separately. But I think it's pretty cool that everyone gets to see in real time where the technology is going.
And I get it. I have empathy for both sides. You see this, you see your team at the table using this new technology, and you were just in a meeting earlier where the software people are lagging behind. It's like, why aren't we getting some of this intelligence into our company?
Yeah.
One question I was really curious to ask you is, do you ever get into the legislation side of conversations at all in your work?
So I'll answer that. And I also want to speak to something you just said, which is, I think, one of the funniest things about this moment. I mean, there's you have to pardon the crassness, but there's that teenage sex joke about, like, the teenage sex is like everyone talks about it, no one's doing it. And AI, the more things change, the more they stay the same, which is like, it's the other problem here is it can be so performative. It is so easy now. The cost of creating value is coming down, but so is the cost of creating a little less than value, right? So when I say that, what I mean is, like, lots of people now are building these really cool demos that cost very little, that are really interesting to look at, but aren't actually doing a lot because they don't change behavior. They don't actually meaningfully produce a new outcome. And so then you get these situations where the board is now staring at something that isn't even valuable, but just looks good. And they're like, why don't we have this? Which is, I think, a lot of the demoware going on right now. And it's not to say that AI can't do incredible things, but so much of the change happens in sort of like a traditional people way. And the reality is that just takes an enormous amount of work. So my sympathy goes out to the CTO doubly, because I think they are getting pressure that is often sometimes unfair and misapplied. Even though this technology is super powerful, there's just still this incredible a misunderstanding of where it should be applied. As for the legislation question, I spent a bunch of time on this. I got really interested in sort of the last 3 years on this role that emerged. The responsible AI function and person, which sort of appeared sort of overnight. A bunch of people had been studying ethical AI their whole lives, it seemed.
Of course, you just update your LinkedIn bio, and that's it.
Yeah. So I got really fascinated, mostly because I wanted to see what these people were saying and what the grift was. And I use grift I don't mean it totally pejoratively. I use it sort of tongue in cheek. But a lot of people overnight were like, look, I'll show you how to do responsible AI. And what I pieced apart is that there was a bunch of, there's a lot of just ways to extract revenue from enterprises who were terrified of being irresponsible, right? It's like the alternative for responsible AI is irresponsible AI, and no one wants to be that. So everyone has to go hire responsible or ethical AI people. But what I tried to do when I talk to CEOs, I spent a bunch of time on this, and policymakers, is pick apart what I think ethical AI is. And first, I remind people that there are a lot of laws in place in this world. And a lot of these laws are meant to and effectively govern what enterprises can do. And they have been applied sort of carefully across technology for a while. And a lot of these laws do not change, right? There's just like a bunch of ethical practices that don't change because of AI. But there are a few that we need to reconsider. And two of them, unfortunately, happen much further upstream. Two of them happen really at the point of research where the models are built. One is alignment and one is explainability. Explainability can happen a little bit further down. And the third, bad acting, is critical and happens at the point of application and the policy to protect us. And I talk a lot basically about these three and not much else. When I talk about legislation, I basically am like, look, There's a bunch of stuff you're going to be inclined to policy. You should avoid all of it that is performative, and you should focus on making sure the models have an appreciation for the consequences of their actions and are aligned to human interests. There are ways that we can do this. You should enforce explainability, especially when the models are being used in sort of precision, high risk environments. Think loan approvals or even small claims courts. What's important is not that the model gets it right every time. What's important is the model can explain itself. And then the third is bad acting. I don't think we fully appreciated that we are massively empowering a low resource bad actor. We spend so much time worrying about the nation states and the Bond villains, and I am principally concerned about the psycho in the garage, or even just the criminal who has figured out that they can do a whole lot more with a lot less. The cost of doing bad stuff is coming down. And so this is where I crusade. And we've had success on sort of all three bases, both at the state, federal, and international level. And I really try to encourage others to just talk on these terms because it would clarify a lot of this dialogue.
Real quick, before we continue, I wanted to give a special shout out to DigitalOcean for sponsoring this episode. DigitalOcean is cloud infrastructure that's simple to spin up, complete with integrated AI dev tools, plus 99.99% uptime SLAs and industry-leading pricing on bandwidth. We all know DigitalOcean. It's super reliable. It's been around forever. And now with DigitalOcean's Gradient platform, developers can train, fine-tune, deploy, and scale AI workloads all in one place. DigitalOcean is reliable and affordable at any budget. Companies can save up to 30% on their cloud bill when they come to DigitalOcean. Use code DO25 and get $200 in free credits to get started. Simple cloud, powerful AI, built to scale. That's DigitalOcean.
Now, back to the episode.
Can I share with you an idea and you can tell me if it's stupid, has merit, if it's kind of okay but has holes, and then can we discuss something?
The preface makes it sound like it's already going to be good.
It's already good. Yeah, it's good. Okay, so I was thinking I'm really into health, right? And so I always look at the nutrition labels. Like I want to know what's in the food that I'm eating. I try to eat as close to like real food as possible. And so I was like, this is great. All of these companies are legislated. They have to do this through the FDA, put the ingredients, and they appear in the order in which the largest quantity, right? Then I go and I use, let's just not name brands. Let's just say every major brand LLM out there that a consumer can pay $20-something a month for. And they all have these obvious default master prompts that we can't see. They're not transparent. And they're injecting ideology of how the model should operate. I'm not saying which ideology. They have an ideology of how, and it's decided in this back room at these companies, and I can't see what I'm consuming. Now, I'm okay if one thinks very differently because of the culture or whatever. Like, I'm okay that there's a bunch of models with a bunch of differences. What I'm not okay with is the fact that there's no transparency as a consumer for me to make a choice. Like, I want to see the master prompt for each service and then choose which one I want, because there might be some services based on the culture that I'm living in that doesn't align with my values.
You're describing explainability. I mean,
That's explainability?
This is explainability. Okay. So what you just described is, and you did it very, very thoughtfully. It is not a crazy idea. It's a super reasonable idea, and we should all require this. One of the things that people always ask me, Joel, is how do we reduce bias in the model? Now, stop me if you've heard this before, but I have to take the opportunity to explain to people that bias is not actually a pejorative. Well, it's a pejorative, but it shouldn't be. The term bias itself is in fact neutral. And what I have to remind people is that all thinking machines, all humans, all thinking machines, all AI systems have bias, and they only work because they're biased. We only work because we're biased.
I think we're going to be best friends. Oh my gosh. The number of people I've had to explain that to is unbelievable. I was like, you cannot function as a living organism without bias. How do you live? How do you survive? You're going to drink motor oil because you can't bias it against water? What is your deal? Yeah.
Well, insert Step Brothers meme. Josh, you can do the Step Brothers meme there.
What they're really saying is values, though, right? They're really saying no.
Sort of. You almost hit the nail on the head there. And what you said was, are you going to drink motor oil? No, you're going to drink water because you know that you need water. There are some things that actually we know we need. Where bias is super interesting is like we would be zombies. We would be basically functional zombies without bias, but we would perform the rudimentary actions that we are sort of hardwired to perform. And without being crass, you can sort of think of what they are. What is important to remember is that there are a bunch of things that we are born knowing how to do. Breathing is one. You don't need to be biased to breathe. You need to have a brain that works. We sort of like have these pre-wired ideas of living. Humans over time have sort of come to understand lots of things. What's important is, and remarkable about humans, is that our brains have now filled with so much information that we cannot possibly unpack all the things that happen inside of our brains. And this is what I have to remind people, which is the problem in the world is not bias. The problem in the world is inexplicability. Humans are exceptionally inexplicable. In fact, not only are we inexplicable to each other, we're inexplicable to ourselves. A lot of the pain in living is not knowing why you feel a certain, is wrestling with a feeling that you cannot make sense of. It's not that you are sad, it's that, your depression doesn't, why are you, people always say, I don't know why I'm sad. And it makes it even more sad, right? I everything's going well, but I can't find joy, or I don't know why I'm so angry right now. Or I woke up really happy today. That's amazing. It must be the astrology. Humans are inexplicable. There is not enough therapy and ayahuasca in the world for any individual, you or me or anyone else, to unpack all the things that we believe. The wiring in our brain is so complex, and we store everything that's ever happened to us in there, and we could never access all of it. Moreover, Joel, even if we could, we would never admit it. We would never, ever tell another soul all the things we believe and why we believe them. There are just some memories that are so taboo that they should never be shared. And frankly, a lot of decisions we make are so sort of inappropriate from where they come from that it would be professional or personal suicide, right? A judge would never say, I'm sentencing you to 6 months because I woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning. I had a terrible, I didn't sleep well last night. I'm pissed off, and you get an extra 6 months. That happens all the time. That happens all the time.
Did you hear the study they did where they took the board of parole and they mapped the time? Did you see that one?
Yes.
And they found out that they would deny the parole before lunch because they got hungry. They were in a bad mood. I
have a friend who applied over and over to get a visa 3 times, and then they finally found a good visa lawyer, and the visa lawyer said, actually, you're applying to the wrong office. That office is famous for rejecting. Wow. It is that bad. Like, it's just, it's one of these situations where we live in a world that is unfair, principally because we often can't explain it. It's not even that we think the rules are broken. Sometimes they are. Now, I say all this because the reason that bias is a pejorative is, I think, our association with bias as something inexplicable. Like when a parent, you'll be at a soccer game, and or the scenes in the movies, if you don't have kids, and some parent will say, "Oh, the coach put their son in because he's biased." It's like, that's true. That is exactly how bias works. But no one ever says, "Oh, that really kind person picked that woman up or helped that woman with her bags because they're biased." Right? We never say someone is biased when they do something good. We only say they're biased when they do something bad, even though most bias, it turns out, is actually good. Right? Like, most people do pretty good things throughout the day. We make mistakes, but like a lot of our bias tells us to do really nice things, and we never use that. We always say, "Oh, you're so kind, you're so thoughtful, you're so gracious," but it's never your bias to do good. Now, I say all this because I'm on this crusade, as it sounds like you are, to remind people that bias is not a pejorative. It's not inherently bad. And what we live in is a world that is not filled with bad bias. We live in a world that is filled with bias we cannot make sense of. That is just not how we are wired. And frankly, I don't want to unpack all the things in my life. There are plenty of memories that don't need to be accessed. And so what we have an opportunity to do now with AI is actually to build an explicable world. We have an opportunity to build a world that makes more sense to us by building machines that are required to explain themselves, not because their decisions are perfect, but because we can make sense of their decisions. The assumption should not be that machines will always get it right. The assumption should be that machines will always tell us exactly why they did something so that we can then action on it.
Okay. I like that. It solves this. It's the same end result.
That's right.
Nutritional labels versus just asking it like, hey, tell me what your, default thoughts are.
Joel,
things.
do you have kids?
I have 3. Yeah.
Okay. So parents will always say to me, I'm really worried about, LLMs teaching my kids. And I go, that's interesting. Have you ever been to a school?
Yeah. Well, we homeschool, but
okay. Enough said.
Yeah.
I'm preaching to we are best friends.
Yeah.
I'm preaching to the choir. My wife's a first grade Waldorf teacher. And she's like, listen, Rudolf Steiner has like a pretty clear understanding of what should and shouldn't be taught. And still, Waldorf teachers go off the reservation because they're biases. Mm-hmm. And when parents are like, what is this LLM teaching me? I'm like, nothing different than what a teacher might teach. Like, if you think ChatGPT gets it wrong, you should go into a classroom. And it's not because teachers are bad. It's just because the job is very hard. And what you never get a chance to do as a parent is say, show me all the things you believe. Show me all your values. Show me all your genetic preconditions. Show me all of your lived history so that I can know what it is you're biasing my child with. You don't get to do that. You meet the teacher once or twice at a parent-teacher conference and you go, oh, I like them, I think, right? I guess. But with the models, and I'm not saying we should hand over teaching to LMs. I'm not proposing that at all. I don't want to sound like I am, but I'm saying it gives us a chance to say, show us all the underlying decisions and information that led you to inform, or that informed this curriculum or this suggestion or this response. And that is all we can ask for from the machines that are never really going to get.
Now, can we legislate that though?
Yes. In fact, not only can we must. I am on a crusade that alignment, explainability, and bad acting are the 3 things that must be legislated, and probably the extent to which we should legislate for now.
How is the bad acting not already legislated?
Well, we have not yet. So it's starting to be, but let me give you an example. The penalty for being caught trying to do mail fraud or wire fraud in the United States sort of scales on a per action basis. So obviously Bernie Madoff got 500 years. But if you if you get caught phishing someone on email, you can only be tried for the amount that they can prove that you were trying to phish them for. Now, the reason why, Joel, you can answer, why is that flawed? Well, because whereas historically you had to do like Robert Redford, Paul Newman, the Sting in order to steal from people, you do these very elaborate financial fraud situations. And so you could basically say this person was caught doing this, and this is the extent to the damage. Phishing is exceptionally inexpensive. So we have to assume we have to assume intent to sell and or whatever the terminology in drugs are, which should carry with it a much bigger penalty because the cost to doing it is so low. And so we have to create this new artificial penalty that doesn't exist. So if you get caught scamming someone over email or catfishing someone, you get slapped on the wrist. Sometimes it's a fine. Sometimes, some DAs will not try it. They'll figure it out on their own. I am advocating that, in fact, if you get caught trying to steal from someone using technology, broadly defined, but deep fakes, et cetera, we should assume you're doing it to a lot of people. And we should assume that you are an incredible threat to the fabric of society and trust. And I advocate aggressively for very punitive policy to punish and principally to terrify people who consider using AI to tear at the fabric of society. Because if we don't, I think it's going to get really weird.
Dude, I did an interview with an insurance guy a couple years ago that does insurance for like data loss and wherever they lock up your data, and hold it hostage. And he was saying you can buy these things like franchises on the dark web and just like let them run. And then you just basically provide support for you're the customer service for all the people you're scamming and locking up their data. And it blew my mind.
I think that we should try these people like I don't want to lose followers, but
We're losing followers today. That's what the engagement was. I was like, Zach, come on, let's rub everyone the wrong
I really
way.
think that we should treat these crimes as like as crimes that tear the fabric of society. Like these are not these are. So Florida recently passed a law that I advocated for and helped with that sort of basically says if you get caught stealing from a senior citizen in Florida using technology, it's an extradition law. You get extradited to Florida. And they are trying to put people away for up to 25 years for attempted financial crime. And my feeling is good. Like, do it. Let everyone find out that this is a scary proposition. It is not something you should consider doing. And if you're a bad guy in a room with other bad guys, sort of going through the list of the bad guy ideas, pass over the one around deepfakes, pass over the phishing one, and you know, we do not want to devolve into a low trust environment. So much of what makes, especially this country, but so much of what makes the world livable is knowing that you can trust when your phone calls, when your phone rings. It's knowing that you can trust a text message from a friend. It's knowing that you can respond to an email safely. And if we lose that, it's going to take a lot to get it back.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should make penalty in general. I'm going to make a blanket statement. I would like to see higher penalties, but I'd also like to see the age changed. Like, I don't think you're an adult until you're 30. I mean, I don't think your brain, you might have been an early developer, but my brain didn't start really working until my late 20s. So I'm like, I think we should raise, this is not popular, but not many people talk about this specific topic anyways. But because like, look, if you're 13 and you're at home and you're screwing around hacking stuff, I don't think you should get 50 years, but like if you're 30 and you do that same thing, maybe, because like we need to know that there's serious penalties for doing it.
It's funny. I take the other side. I think that younger and younger people are more and more capable. I agree that your brain isn't developed, but I actually think that part of the problem is that I think we should create more accountability for younger people. They're going to start to entering the workforce sooner. I mean, Alex Karp and Sam Altman have already done away with the college requirement for employment because they're awesome. Young people are super capable. I mean, thanks to AI largely. And moreover, the tools that they have. I mean, it used to be, when you and I were coming up, we didn't have a whole lot of tools to learn how to code, to learn how to program. So like the amount of harm we could do is pretty limited. I mean, you smash mailboxes, I throw the local golf flags into the nearby lake. That's okay. When people start, doing things like chaining together models to fish and then scam and doing it at scale. I mean,
there's an argument for that. Yeah,
Joel, Scattered Spider. You know that group, the crypto theft ring run by like 4 19-year-olds in Canada and the US got away, stole whatever, $200 million. I don't know, man. You're gonna have to convince me those are not adults doing adult things.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, you're exactly right. No. I'm. That was not a incredibly strong belief that like was held really tightly. That was just in general watching how stupid and undeveloped kids are. Like, I'm around a bunch of 8-year-olds and stuff, dude. I'm like, your brains you are not capable of decision making. But I forgot that, like,
it's a long day as a parent, sort of reminding yourself
they're
that your
out
kids
of school
are not yet
right now. So we homeschooled for the first several years. They're 8, 6, and 3. We homeschooled, and then we lived on a farm. And we lived like out in the middle of nowhere. We homeschooled. And then we moved into this neighborhood about 3 months ago. And their friends, the neighborhood kids, go to school. So they approached us 3 months ago and they're like, hey, can we go to school? And I said, well, I got to go meet the teachers first. Because at their grade, they're with one person.
I got to know their biases.
Yeah, I did. And so I walked in. They're giving us the tour, and the teacher goes, do you have any concerns or questions? And Aria, my daughter, she goes, my daddy wants to make sure you guys aren't woke. And they laughed so hard. But
where are you? Where do you? Are you allowed?
Nashville.
Okay,
yeah, I'm outside of Nashville.
So they had a good chuckle.
They had a good chuckle. And so we actually sat down and had a conversation with the 2 teachers, one for my son, one for my daughter. And we talked about their values. And obviously we didn't see eye to eye on everything, but it was 80% there. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm comfortable with my child spending 7 hours a day with you.
That's great. How's it going?
They love it. My son, the younger one, my son's like, he likes it, but if we wanted to go to Disney World, he'd be like, we're going to Disney World. My daughter's like, I don't even want to go to Disney World. I just want to go to school. She is incredibly smart.
Wow.
And she's really taken to it well. So
that's awesome, Joel. And sorry, you're there. It's what are their ages?
My daughter's 8, my son's 6, and my third, he's 3. So he's not in school right now. Yeah. What about you?
My daughter set to be born in 18 days.
Okay. Dude, you're in it right now. You're on high alert.
But yeah, so baby coming and all of this is like super, I mean, it's so top of mind. And actually I wrote a book coming out January 13th and basically wrote it with my daughter. I started the process. We weren't yet pregnant. And then sort of as the book got closer and closer to the manuscript deadline, my the pregnancy became more and more real. And then kind of, it sounds like you just started thinking about everything from the lens of like, what is this experience going to mean for my child, whatever it was. And so I now sort of find myself advocating for lots of things that I think I'd like believed, or known, I should say known, but now I believe.
I cared about nothing before kids. I would tell people I'm apolitical. I'm a technologist. I create things. I spend all of my energy creating products and businesses. I didn't get involved in any of the social stuff at all. And then I had kids, and then it just became unavoidable. Yeah. It's like, and you could kind of see how decisions and stuff between different parents and like how their kids start to develop. And it's like, whoa, we're all raising our own little large language models. It's crazy. And we're all programming them. It's wild.
On that point, I will say something that I think is unavoidable and hard for me to consider, but it's something I've thought about a lot, which is, you and I are sort of this generation where the last generation where we sort of grew up sort of with the internet, but not high speed internet. Right. So we, what we learned, we was savored. I remember going on dialing into the 56K modem and going to a web page and being like, wow, I just read, someone asked me something because I am the smartest man alive, right? Grandma just sent me an email. I just read a web page about who knows what. I just spent an hour on eBaum's World. Ask me anything. And what I've realized in talking to young people is so much of what I attribute to the sort of the angst in the younger generation today is, of course, one, device addiction. I just think the screen is destroying lives in ways we don't yet appreciate or do, but haven't really priced in. But I actually think the other issue is we just know too much. It's like the large language models. We've had these very powerful neural nets, and they've developed quite a bit for a while. But all of a sudden, we spent our entire lineage sort of knowing nothing, knowing very little, right? And then within, in a matter of 30 years, we said to every child on earth, watch this screen for 8 hours. We'll watch everything, all the horrors of the world and everything else, and then tell us how you feel. And by the way, why are you complaining? Go enjoy your day. And the consequences of this are remarkable, which is like the model itself hasn't updated, but the RAG, the amount of retrieval information has. And so you don't actually have a system that is effective at parsing any other than a prior model. It is, it's the equivalent of a GPT, but it's now being asked to make sense of so much more information. And so I just sort of attribute so much of the current state of angst to just the fact that people know too much. They could be staring at all of the problems in the world, despite the fact that things constantly get better everywhere, all the time. I mean, with some
significantly,
exceptions. We are filled with so much dread because we never figured out, how to retrieve the right information, and so we're filled with selection bias, confirmation bias, negativity bias, and my favorite, rosy retrospection, which keeps telling us that the past is better than it actually was. And I'm like,
it's not.
The problem here is that the kids know too much. Like, they just know too much. And we should start acknowledging that we overexpose them to the horrors of the world and then ask them why they were having a bad day.
It's true.
That is something I think about all the time. And I do not know how to escape that. I don't know what, I know the world my daughter will come into is full of wonder, and I think we'll be on a better path than the one we're on today. And I also have to wonder, how we're going to manage the neural net that is going to be overexposed to just bad stuff.
So what I've seen over the past 8 years of being a parent and doing this show and all of this, and For me, it just forces you to become a more involved, better parent. So I think the kids that have absentee parents, when we were a child, they could get into some trouble and stuff, but not like real addictive trouble. It's like, it's really hard. It's so accessible. It's so like, it's a Swiss Army knife. The screen can do everything. It can be the alcohol that you shouldn't get into, but it can also be the first aid kit that you need. It can be so many things, and it's so accessible and so cheap, and it's all through one device. So that means if you are wild and free and you don't have, involved parents as a kid, you can really go far down the wrong path. And for us raising the kids, we've just been, making up our own rules as we go, with watching their stuff. They're all on Apple devices, and we all have we're very involved with the restriction systems on the Apple devices. And they have limits to their different categories of applications. Like they can do their educational apps more than they can play some games.
Seems really smart. I mean, the rules-based systems clearly are tough. When people ask how are you, there's always the gotcha. How are you going to raise your, are you going to give your daughter social media? And I'm like, look, who knows what the device is even going to look like by the time she arrives at that age? I said, all I can hope is that she loves the outdoors. The only thing, like, I really, really want to overinvest in the alternatives to a digital reality. And I'm sure that the technology is going to carry her far. I'm just desperate to create a world where she is excited to be with friends and family in the outdoor spaces.
I can give you that answer right now.
Tell me.
Doesn't matter what you tell them. They're just going to do what you do, and they're going to love it. They'll they just want to, you're the hero. And they want to do that. So if you're doing bad things, they're going to copy you and do bad things, no matter how much you tell them to do good things. If you do good things, they're going to do good things, even if you told them to do bad things.
Well, good thing Adley's my wife then.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're going to do, is she into outdoors?
Exceptionally. Yeah. I married my, sort of my spirit animal, as I say to people.
There we go.
You're talking about a woman whose phone can die and she won't notice for like a day.
That's great.
Loves camping, first grade Waldorf teacher, and an elite athlete who is, her idea of a late term pregnancy activity is to play volleyball for a few hours. So
there you go.
It's all I could have ever dreamed of, and I just I had no idea how important it would be. I knew it was important, and then AI started to catch the pace it did, and now it's so clear to me that, like, truly the future currencies are physical spaces. I mean, there's just going to be so much digital abundance, and we have to impart on our children a love for community and outdoors.
Yeah, well, we in COVID about 3 or 4 years ago, we sold everything, we bought an RV, and we did a year-long camping trip around the country.
Wow!
So the kids got outdoors; they were playing in the national parks every day. That's why we homeschooled originally, was so we could do the RV thing. Favorite,
this is, I guess, so reductive, but favorite moment or a special moment that you capture from that trip?
Yeah, the most special moment is we were on our way to Nebraska, and we had to stop in Tennessee, and it was like close to summertime or at summertime. And we were born and raised in Florida, so that's where we were coming from, which is hot every day and muggy every day. And so we get to Tennessee, and it's summer, and it's cool in the evening. And I said, I want to live here. We then proceeded to continue to travel for 9-10 months, and we ended up buying, and then within an hour of that place that we stopped in Tennessee.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a special moment.
That was a special moment. Yeah, it was just a one-night stop while we were driving through, and we just went on this walk, and the people at the campsite next to us were cool, and it just had really good vibes, for lack of a better term. And we're like this
cosmic intervention.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, side question, just for fun: what's the first piece of content you've ever put on the internet?
Well, I mean, in a public domain or private domain? Because private domain, obviously, emails, like early AOL email or AIM Messenger.
The first public post that you could track back down.
I assume that it is the first Facebook post I ever did, and I think it was, if I recall, it was a photo in senior high school. I took a selfie on a traditional digital camera of me and 4 friends in a Lufthansa. Remember those 343? Well, I think they still exist. I don't go to the back of the plane much anymore, but those 343 crazy economy cabins in Lufthansa where they just like jam people in. I took a digital camera selfie. The whole row was my high school friends.
Oh, nice.
I love this photo. And then I posted on Facebook, and it was, I think I'm fairly certain the first photo I ever posted. I think it might still be there. I haven't logged into Facebook in quite some time.
That is awesome. For me, it was 1996, and I had posted, I was trying to I don't know if it was cheating or just being smart about my homework, but I had a report due on sea slugs, and a guy had a blog on sea slugs, and I posted a message to him asking him essentially the questions that were in my worksheet about sea slugs, and he responded 2 years later. But that's like, you could see Joel Beasley, so I looked it up in the Wayback Machine and took a screenshot of it a few years ago because someone was asking me about it, and that's it.
I was pretty active on the Tom Clancy Rainbow Six gamer board in 8th grade, 2000 or 2000. Yeah. 2000 and 2001. I was pretty active on the Tom Clancy Rainbow Six message boards. I don't really know why. I loved that game.
Rainbow Six 3 was the best. Of course.
I loved that game. Yeah. I just remember telling everyone that I was going to play Tom Clancy and that everyone needed to unplug the phones. I was like, listen, if the phone rings or if you pick up the phone, it's going to ruin this whole thing. So just I'm dialing into the modem. I do remember that. Yeah, I remember all that.
I want to talk, I know we only have about 15 minutes or so left, but I wanted to talk about the societal thresholds. I think you've written some white papers on this. Can you give me the brief overview of that?
Societal threshold. Yeah, we've written a few white papers now that have gained some momentum. Unmetered intelligence is sort of like the principal one, and that's we predicate the book on this idea of what if intelligence becomes a resource. What if we treat intelligence like a resource that is just declining now precipitously in cost and therefore increasing in abundance? And one of the questions that is born from unmetered intelligence is this idea of technological and societal thresholds. Technological threshold asks the question, what can a machine do? And a societal threshold asks the question, what do we want a machine to do? What are we willing to let a machine do? And societal thresholds and technological thresholds have always coexisted, and often with a space, what we call the adoption gap between them. And sometimes that space is felt very pronounced, but basically never more so than it does today. And the reasons for this are sort of obvious. But before I go into it, I'll tell a story that I think explains societal thresholds because it makes it very real for most people. I was trying to figure out what is the best way to explain societal thresholds, and we studied a bunch of stuff. And there are tons of really interesting examples: nuclear power, GMOs, chemicals like DDT, right? Things that we adopted and then actually rolled back over time. But the elevator is my favorite. And the elevator story goes like this. Elijah Otis discovers a better way to move people up and down tall buildings. Previous to this, we'd been using rope and pulley systems in mine shafts and tall buildings. And in 1854, he introduces what he calls the people mover, a safer way to move people up and down these buildings. And it comes with basically a fail-safe that catches the pulley if it breaks. So it's a second parachute. And it's empirically it's this massive improvement that actually exists today in one form or another. This thing that if the mechanism breaks, it actually catches, so elevators don't plummet. And he starts selling a bunch of these people movers. At the time, it's not called an elevator. And the people mover captures a bunch of attention from building owners, and they buy a bunch, but within a few years, 1856, Elijah starts getting all these phone calls, and it's the building owners. They're saying, "Hey, no one's riding the elevator." And well, why not? Well, people are afraid they're going to die still. So Elijah's met the technological threshold. He has built a machine that empirically is safe and effective at moving people up and down, but he hasn't met the societal threshold. He hasn't convinced people that they should use it. So he goes back to the drawing board and he comes up with 3 ways he thinks he can convince people to ride the elevator. The first is he puts a mirror in the back of every elevator, so when you walk in, you'd be distracted by your own image. The second is he puts music in every elevator, so when you walk in, you'll be entertained. And the third is he puts an operator in the elevator, a physical person in the elevator to give you a sense of human agency and control. And of course, it works. It moves the societal threshold. People gradually start to adopt the machines, and then the rest is history. We don't think twice. I like this story particularly because I do think twice. I am terrified of crowded elevators. That's a separate psychological problem. But it is this. It's this funny reminder that like just because something works doesn't mean that we want to use it. And when I tell people this story, they laugh. They're willing to chuckle at it. And of course, then I ask them, I say, well, okay, what do you think our elevator is?
Tesla's self-driving right now. I want them to release it. I want them to. I know they can. It's great.
You nailed it. I mean, actually, I argue that of all the things that have been said about autonomous vehicles, not enough has been said because we're fixated on all the wrong things. We're talking about how well it works or how will we make the roads, forward compatible? What will it do to the economy? And I'm like, no, you're missing the whole point, which is that right now, globally, but pronounced in the developed world, autonomous vehicles, Joel, poll at 25% approval. They are exceptionally unpopular. And actually, it appears that they used to be more popular. Now, some of this is an Elon thing. Some of this is like this political flashpoint, and it's just like this bad confluence of events. But actually, in studying it, we sort of unearthed some other very, very interesting truths that I think tell the story about AI societal thresholds. How and why will we adopt AI systems? And the first is that humans, so the first reason that AI societal thresholds move slowly, as told by the autonomous vehicle, is that humans love control. We love control. And we understood this really well, having done a bunch of different things, but we went to Disneyland and we studied the ride Autopia. Have you taken the kids to Disneyland, by the way?
Yeah, we have.
Okay. Disneyland in Anaheim.
Nope, Disney World.
Okay. So Disneyland in Anaheim features a ride that was built in 1954 called Autopia. It is one of the 7 original rides at Disneyland. It is a cement track on which children aged 3 through 8 ride around in gas-powered go-karts about 2 miles an hour.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
They operate on a track literally like this wide, 6 inches wide, that gives them this much wiggle room. So you don't have to turn the wheel. And Disney kind of hates this ride. And in fact, they're finally updating it. But the reason it took them so long, despite the fact that the ride is very smelly, it actually emits enough fumes that people working the ride have to change shifts regularly because it gives them headaches. It sounds bad. It looks bad. It's a cement track. It has no Disney affiliation. And the problem with this ride, as far as Disney is concerned, is that since 1954, its inception, it has been the most popular ride for children aged 3 through 8. And when you learn this, you appreciate the most remarkable truth that more so than the Matterhorn, more so than Space Mountain, more so than the teacups, kids want to drive a car. And it is this reminder that even a child who has no appreciation for what a vehicle is or what it offers them knows that controlling a machine is fun. And relinquishing that control is very hard for us. And this is just one of these incredible reasons that we are going to struggle, even if you hate the monotony of your commute, to actually give up the steering wheel, or even if you appreciate how dangerous it might be. Second reason, technological thresholds are moving too quickly. So when we started doing the study, autonomous vehicles were actually not that good. Empirically, human drivers seemed to be safer. And in the sort of 3 years in the time that we released the book, something amazing happened, which is that autonomous vehicles got really good. I mean, empirically better than human drivers. And we expected it to move the polls. Guess how much it moved the polls?
Little to none.
Not at all. In fact, it appears that autonomous vehicles were more popular 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And 25% of people now say that they are open to it. 50% say they are disinterested. And an incredible percentage say they would advocate aggressively against it. And this, to me, I used to think, oh, humans don't risk adjust well. That may be true, but actually something else is happening here, which is most people just have no idea how good autonomous vehicles are.
That's what it is. So for me, I went down in December. My wife came out and I was like out in the garage and she goes, "Hey, did you hear that full self-driving's out now?" Because I'd always talked about getting a Tesla or trying one because some of my business partners had them and I thought they were cool. And I was like, "For real?" She's like, "Yeah." She's like, "There's one in Franklin, which was like 2 hours from us. It's where we live now." She's like, "Do you want to go look at it?" And I said, "Yeah, let's just go experience." Because I'm a modern CTO guy, right? I want to sit in the car and let it fully self-drive me from A to B. That would be very cool and nerdy. So I did, and I walked out of the dealership with one that day because it was such a magical experience. A Y, just a white Model Y, and it was $500 a month lease. And I was like, yeah, I'll take it just to, experience. It's my favorite car. I thought I would just have it. It would be, one of the cars, and it's become my favorite car, hands down. I wish I could take it everywhere.
So what you're describing is this reminder that most people actually have no idea how good autonomous driving is because it's happened so fast. Outside of Pittsburgh and Phoenix, San Francisco, Los Angeles, there just very few people have ever been exposed to these things. And I experienced this in a very real way, sort of orthogonally recently. I was at a medical conference espousing the promises of radiology pathology in computer vision, talking about how we had made so much progress and it was getting so exciting. And when I was done at this, talking about this doctor stood up, raised his hand, stood up in a huge room and said, "Zach, I'm sorry to embarrass you." That's how he started the question. He said, "I'm sorry to embarrass you, but you're wrong." And actually, he took the time. He spent like a couple minutes sort of lambasting the technologists who had been talking about all the things that AI was going to do. And none of us appreciated what the actual plight of the patient experience or the doctor, and we should stop promising these panaceas. And he sat down, never really having asked a question. And I had the sort of gall to respond and say, "Sir, I'm sorry to embarrass you, but you're wrong. The study that you have cited is actually a year old. And as of 2 months ago, radiology pathology is basically solved in all scans except the cardiovascular chest scan, which is hard for reasons we can't yet figure out. But limbs, abdomen, brain, the GPT-4o is outperforming the 95% of radiologists." And what I said was, I don't blame you for not knowing. It is all happening too fast. And if a radiologist who, who's clearly at a conference, so he wants to learn more, who has to take regular boards, who has to stay up to date, doesn't know that what a technology is capable of and how it is impacting his profession, what chance does the average person have to know? And the speed at which the technological threshold is moving is going to serve as this sort of natural but very interesting rate limiter to the societal threshold. Now, I'll start by saying, Joel, before I tell you the third reason, this one is okay because I do think it gives us some appropriate pause. Like, it's not terrible to me that we don't immediately adopt everything. There are plenty of societal thresholds, I argue, Joel, that should never move. And we can have that conversation another time. But the third reason that societal thresholds move slowly, as told by the autonomous vehicle, because of, in the case of AI, is one that you can never unsee once you see it, and is sort of, funny. But humans have a remarkable tolerance for human failure, and we have no tolerance for machine failure. And
that's why I did this interview. When I read that line, I was like, we're doing this interview.
Nice. It is this incredible thing that you cannot unsee. And it's why 1.3 million people can die on the global roadways every year, 95% by human error. And if a Waymo swerves into the wrong lane, people go, how dare they? How dare they endanger us? Shut it all down. It would be
headlines for 72 hours. Yeah.
Shut it all down. Like drag them in front of Congress. Let's get to the bottom of this. These dystopian technocrats. Now, I will say there are some features to this very strange anomaly. Well, this very strange bias. There I am using it. One of the features is that like our expectations for machines is so high that like things like flight work exceptionally well when it could be really, questionable. We are like, listen, we're going to inspect that plane every 3 months. And if there's any issue, it's coming out of the sky, you're going to get fined. Buildings don't fall over for the same reason. We have exceptional code around the machines that we build that run our lives. And to such an extent that like any manufacturer of modern goods worth its weight offers like 3-year warranties. Like people are like, oh, they don't make things like they used to. I'm like, yeah, they still make things pretty good. Right? I mean, like there are a lot of laws that protect you from lemons and things that break that in a world where like they're manufacturing like 1 million of these, 2 million of these, and they still work really well. That's amazing to me. But it is fascinating to me that we are so willing to watch ourselves do incredible damage to each other as long as it's an accident and human error. And the marginal likelihood of a machine that could save, in our case, again, 1.3 million lives, is the marginal chance of failure is just too great for us. And I think there are 2 reasons for this that we talk about in the book. One is humans have this association with mechanical failure as systemic failure, which is interesting. We believe that if one machine can fail, all machines will fail in the same way. And of course, the opposite is true. If we can observe a machine fail, we can stop all machines from failing in the same way. And humans, as you well know, do not possess this feature. Right? Humans fail all day, every day in the same way, over and over and over, collectively and individually. And the other reason is that we have no empathy for machines. And I think this is fascinating, and I don't hate this one either, but we really do have empathy for each other, right? Watching someone make a mistake, we always, we'll often imagine empathetic people, but many people will say, oh, it could have happened to anyone. I understand, it's like, that's tough, right? That's hard. Someone, truck driver falls asleep at the wheel and people are like, God, we just ask too much of these truck drivers, right? We rightfully have none for machines. We expect precision from machines and we expect directionality from each other. And honestly, I think it creates a more human world. I prefer this to the alternative, but I also acknowledge that this is going to be one of these cases where so much good is going to be locked up behind a societal threshold because there is a marginal rate of failure that is just intolerable. And early adoption will happen on an individual basis, but it will take a long time to happen on a societal one.
I agree. That's amazing. I like the rate limiter part. I always think about the human's ability to adopt things and how difficult it is for us to change behaviors is sort of like a safeguard for rapid advancement. Because right now we're having breakthroughs, let's say they were happening on a 5-year basis. I feel like right now they're happening on a quarterly basis. Like it's been speeding up in my professional career. And there's no reason for me to think that wouldn't continue to stay in motion. And then in the next couple of years, we're having breakthroughs on a daily basis that are just, I can't even keep up with them. It's my full-time job. I get paid to do this, to try to keep up with this stuff. And I have a team. I get paid to do it and I can't keep. And my mind is still blown on a daily basis. It's wild.
Yeah.
But
I really do think that I think societal thresholds will serve a critical role going forward. They will create an artificial rate limiter and it will give us all a chance to sort of update to society in a more natural way. But it is going to create some head scratching moments where we go, God, we would be a lot better off if we just, if we allowed this or did this. And the question, can a machine do something, is just not going to be that important in 10 years, right? The question of, do we want a machine? Do we let a machine do that thing is going to be way more interesting.
Yeah. Well, luckily we do have a biological limit and generations like iPhones, right? Where the generations of humans will be more prepared to handle this. But we are, like, I'm in my late 30s right now. Like, we are in the position where we're having an impact on this stuff for the next generations below us. So we have to at least think deeply about these things, do the best we can.
Well, we're scratching the surface today. And I do think social media, like others, serves as a reminder that not all societal thresholds need to stay crossed, right? Like, I think there are times where we can say, oh, whoops, let's dial this back. We get to live and learn, and we can acknowledge that we are still capable of making mistakes, and the humility to admit that is going to allow us to actually undo a lot of wrong.
Let's get some rapid fire stuff here as we start to wrap up. Are you cool with that?
Fire.
Okay, you've got a book coming out in January of 2026. Tell me about the book.
Well, we talked about some of it today. It's the answer to my attempts to help people make sense of the future. And I do so. I think the world lacks a lot of nuance, especially when it comes to AI. And it's the best attempt I have to give people the good, the bad, and the ugly from honestly a biased lens of hope. I was born with an optimistic disposition. I studied history and found a lot of defense for it and computer science. And when you study those things, you learn that the world gets better all the time, and then you learn why. And the book is my attempt to help people imagine a future that is better, acknowledging all the things that can and may break.
And is it available for order today?
It's available for pre-order today. Thanks. You're leading the witness quite well. You can host the link, I'm sure, on your site. It's on Amazon. It's also on my website.
So people can search It's Great Renaissance. Is that correct?
The next Renaissance, AI and the Expansion of Human Potential. And I checked, it's doing pretty well on SEO and ChatGPT. So depending on your search preference, it will show up most places.
Yeah. And also, guys, I'd like to give a shout out to Zach because, when doing this interview, when prepping for it, I got to watch some of the videos and stuff on your website and of you speaking and doing these conferences and this consulting stuff. I mean, you got like a 5-star review from Coca-Cola for like consulting and helping them figure out the future with AI. So I believe you do that, right? You do consulting and you do speaking as well.
Yeah, I have a advisory practice and a speaking practice. We have a content. Obviously, we have the book coming out, and then I have a company to be announced. I'm going back to operating, so I just finished a fundraise for a company to be announced soon enough. That I'm really excited about. That aims to bring AI to everyone.
Oh, that's amazing. Now I'm an interviewer, so I have 70 questions, but
That's right. I mean, we can do a follow up, it brings to bear a lot of my experiences and is trying to help the Fortune 5,000. A lot of companies that I worry about getting left behind. There's a concentration of resources happening right now, and we're going to try to help everyone else catch up.
That's interesting. Maybe we talk after the show. I've been having conversations the past 2 weeks about how do we help companies in the 5 to 15 million revenue range adopt this stuff and with a couple different people. So January 2026, the book comes out. And let's see. I also have, let's do one of these questions for advice for tech leaders. What should a CTO prioritize when integrating AI into their organization?
It depends on, B2B, B2C. Are they building internally? Are they building externally? I try to remind companies forward compatible infrastructure. And forward compatible infrastructure now is not just technological, there's organizational, there's cultural. Building a company that is amenable to change. The other thing I try to remind people is this idea of anchoring on your vision and mission and values. I think it's easy to be a candle in the wind when everything's changing. It's very easy for a CTO to pick up a new object just to satisfy the board with a shiny object. And I think it's critical now more than ever to say, listen, this is what we're trying to solve. These are the things that we alone can build, and these are the things that we must purchase. And acknowledging that list may change, but our pursuit, our panacea, our utopia will not. And if you're amenable to the ways and means, if you're very open to how you accomplish something, which I've discovered a lot of CTOs are sort of religious in their practices, actually, and be religious in your vision, be religious in your mission and purpose, and be very amenable to how you accomplish it. You will have a very good time.
Yeah, I love that. No, this is good. I like the way you think. It's Zach Kass. ZAKKASS.com. Is that correct?
ZACKKASS.com.
All right. We got it. And we'll put links in the notes below. Thank you so much for doing this. We made a podcast. How do you feel?
Great, Joel. I had a ton of fun. And as you said, did we just become best friends?
I think so.
Yeah, there you go. Insert Step Brothers.
Thank you so much for listening. And if you found this episode useful, please share it with a friend or a colleague who you think would get value from it. And if you have topics that you would like to hear discussed on the podcast, either add me on LinkedIn
or send me an email, joel@moderncto.io. Every time I get an email or LinkedIn message, it absolutely makes my day and inspires me to keep going.